The green digital numbers on the bedside clock glowed sharply in the dark room. 1:30 a.m. I rolled over onto my side, stretching my hand across the mattress, but my fingers only touched cold, empty bedsheets. My husband's side of the bed was perfectly neat, untouched since yesterday morning. From downstairs, I heard the faint, muffled sound of the garage door rolling upward, followed by the quiet click of the heavy front door unlocking. A minute later, a tired-looking man stepped into our bedroom, loosening his dark silk tie. His name was Hugo. We had been married for 4 wonderful years, and he was a senior financial director at a major corporate investment firm downtown. "Hugo," I whispered, sitting up and rubbing my eyes. "You are home so late again. Is everything okay?" Hugo gave me a weak, exhausted smile. He walked over to the bed, leaned down, and kissed my forehead. His skin felt cool, and his clothes smelled faintly of expensive rain and fresh paper. "I am so sorry, Diana," he said softly, his voice heavy with fatigue. "The board of directors is merging with a European bank this month. I have been buried under mountains of financial spreadsheets and legal documents. I have to verify every single account balance before the Friday deadline. The office is a complete madhouse." My heart filled with deep sympathy for him. Hugo worked incredibly hard to provide our beautiful lifestyle, our modern suburban house, our regular weekend trips, and our stable financial future. He was a dedicated, reliable man who never complained about his heavy corporate burdens. "You need to take care of your health, Hugo," I said, pulling the warm blankets up to his chest as he climbed into bed. "No job is worth destroying your body over." "I know, Diana," he murmured into his pillow, his eyes already closing from pure exhaustion. "Just a few more days of overtime, and then things will return to normal. I promise." Within minutes, his breathing became slow, deep, and steady. I lay beside him in the dark, watching his peaceful face in the moonlight, feeling incredibly lucky to have such a responsible, loving partner. The next morning, the bright sun woke me at 7:00 a.m. Hugo was already gone. He had left a small handwritten note on the kitchen counter next to a fresh cup of coffee. "Early morning meeting with the vice president. See you tonight around midnight. Love you." I smiled, taking a sip of the warm coffee. I spent my morning cleaning the living room, watering the garden plants, and organizing our home office. While I was dusting the top of the heavy oak desk in our study, my eyes fell upon a thick, black leather folder resting near the printer. On the front of the folder, a white label read, "Confidential Mutual Acquisition Project, Final Audit File." My breath caught in my throat. Hugo had been talking about this specific audit file for 3 weeks straight. It contained the crucial data for the European bank merger. He had explicitly mentioned last night that if this folder wasn't verified by the board of directors by 2:00 p.m. today, the entire multi-million-dollar contract would collapse. I checked the wall clock. 11:45 a.m. "Oh no," I muttered out loud, my heart beginning to race with panic. He must have forgotten it in his rush this morning. I didn't hesitate for a single second. Hugo was probably pacing around his corporate office right now, desperately searching through his briefcase, his stress levels breaking through the roof. I grabbed my car keys, clutched the heavy leather folder tightly against my chest, and ran out to the garage. I wanted to be his savior today. I wanted to walk into his high-rise office building, hand him the vital document, and see the massive wave of relief wash over his handsome face. I wanted to show him that I was a supportive, reliable partner who always had his back. The drive downtown took 45 minutes through the heavy city traffic. The sky was turning a dark, heavy gray, threatening a summer storm. I parked my car in the underground garage of Tower 42, the massive, modern glass skyscraper where Hugo's investment firm occupied the top 3 floors. I walked through the glossy marble lobby, my high heels clicking loudly against the polished floor. The security guard at the front desk looked up, giving me a polite nod. He recognized me because I had attended the corporate Christmas gala with Hugo last December. "Heading up to the 41st floor, Mrs. Vance?" the guard asked, pressing a digital button to activate the glass elevator for me. "Yes, thank you, Timothy," I replied with a bright smile, holding up the black folder. "My husband forgot an incredibly important file today. I need to deliver it before his 2:00 p.m. meeting." "You are a wonderful wife," the guard smiled. "Have a great day." The glass elevator shot upward with incredible speed, the city skyline expanding outside the window like a giant blueprint. When the elevator doors slid open on the 41st floor, the familiar atmosphere of corporate luxury greeted me. The air smelled of expensive carpet and fresh coffee. Beautiful abstract paintings hung on the white walls, and glass doors led into various corporate suites. I pushed open the heavy glass doors of Apex Wealth Management. The reception desk was empty, but I could hear the faint, steady sound of fingers clicking on keyboards from the inner cubicles. I walked past the reception area, heading down the wide, carpeted corridor toward the corner office. Hugo's office was the largest one on this floor, featuring a panoramic view of the river. As I walked, I expected to see stressed financial analysts running around with papers, preparing for the massive bank merger. Instead, the hallway was strangely quiet, almost peaceful. I reached the heavy mahogany door that had a small silver plaque. "Hugo Vance, Senior Financial Director." The door was slightly ajar, a small crack of yellow light spilling onto the gray corridor carpet. I smiled, imagining him buried behind a wall of financial books. I knocked softly on the wood, pushing the door open completely. "Surprise, honey. Look what I found on your desk." The words died instantly in my throat. The office was completely empty. The large leather executive chair was tucked neatly beneath the massive desk. The surface of the mahogany desk was completely bare. No laptops, no scattered papers, no coffee cups, and no desk calendars. A single decorative lamp was turned on in the corner, casting a lonely shadow across the room. I stood frozen in the doorway, my eyebrows furrowing in confusion. Maybe he was already in the boardroom for his 2:00 p.m. meeting. I turned around and walked back down the corridor, stopping beside a small cubicle where a young female analyst was typing rapidly on a computer screen. Her desk nameplate read Nadia. "Excuse me, Nadia," I asked politely, leaning over the partition. The young woman looked up, her eyes blinking in surprise. "Oh, "Hello, Mrs. Vance. Can I help you find something?" "Yes, please," I said, holding up the black leather folder. "I am looking for Hugo. He left this crucial audit file at home. Is he currently inside the main boardroom with the vice president?" Nadia stared at me, her expression instantly turning from professional politeness to complete, absolute confusion. She stopped typing entirely, her hands hovering above the keyboard. I don't understand, Mrs. Vance," Nadia said, her voice dropping into a quiet, hesitant whisper. "Mr. Vance isn't in a meeting today." "What do you mean?" I laughed softly, though a small, cold knot of anxiety suddenly tightened in my stomach. He told me he had an emergency budget audit for the European Bank merger at 2:00 p.m. Nadia swallowed hard, looking around the floor nervously as if she were afraid someone would overhear her. "Mrs. Vance, the European Bank merger was finalized and signed over 6 months ago. We aren't doing any audits right now. In fact, Mr. Vance hasn't been in this building since Tuesday morning. He took a mandatory 2-week personal leave of absence." The black leather folder slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the carpeted floor with a dull thud. The room suddenly felt incredibly cold, and the walls of Tower 42 seemed to tilt slightly around me. A personal leave of absence," I stammered, my voice trembling. "But that's impossible. He leaves our house every single morning at 6:30 a.m. in his suit. He comes home at midnight, completely exhausted from working overtime." Nadia's face turned completely pale with pity. She stood up from her chair, stepping out of her cubicle to pick up my dropped folder. She handed it back to me, her eyes filled with deep discomfort. "I am so sorry, Mrs. Vance," she whispered gently. "I am just his administrative assistant, but I manage his corporate calendar. His digital schedule has been completely blank for the past 10 days. He told the vice president that he needed some personal time off to handle a private family matter. We all assumed you knew." I couldn't breathe. The air in the luxury office felt like thick, heavy smoke. If Hugo wasn't at the office for the past 2 weeks, where had he been going every morning? Who was he meeting until midnight? Why was he faking his exhaustion, his stress, and his midnight arrivals? My mind raced through 100 terrifying possibilities. Was he having an affair? Was he secretly spending our life savings? Was he leading a double life that I knew absolutely nothing about? I thanked Nadia in a hollow, robotic voice, turned around, and walked unsteadily toward the glass elevators. As I stepped inside the metal cabin and pressed the button for the garage, my phone suddenly vibrated inside my handbag. I pulled it out with shaking hands. It was a text message from Hugo, sent just 2 minutes ago. "Hey, Diana, just finished a brutal presentation with the board members. Eating a quick sandwich at my desk right now, then heading into another long meeting. Miss you. Eat dinner without me tonight." I stared at the glowing words on the screen. The lie was so smooth, so natural, and so completely sociopathic. He was sitting at his desk, eating a sandwich, inside an office that I was currently standing 40 floors below, an office that was completely bare and dark. A cold, dark fury began to replace my paralyzing fear. My husband wasn't a hard-working corporate hero. He was a ghost, a beautifully dressed liar who was spinning a complex web of deception, right before my eyes. And I was going to find out exactly what he was hiding in the shadows. I sat inside my parked car in the dark underground garage of Tower 42, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned completely white. The text message from Hugo was still glowing on my phone screen. Eating a quick sandwich at my desk right now. A harsh, bitter laugh escaped my lips. I deleted the notification, threw the phone onto the passenger seat, and stared blindly at the concrete wall in front of me. If he wasn't upstairs in that high-rise office, where was he right now? I looked at the heavy black folder resting on my lap. The confidential audit file that I had rushed downtown to deliver was nothing but an empty prop in his elaborate theater. He had intentionally left it on the desk at home, knowing I would find it, knowing it would reinforce his narrative of being a stressed, overworked husband. It was a perfect camouflage. I glanced at my watch. 1:15 p.m. Usually, Hugo claimed he stayed at the office until midnight, but if he was on a complete leave of absence, he had to be spending those 12 hours somewhere else. I decided not to confront him via text. If I called him out now, he would have time to invent another smooth, logical lie. I needed undeniable, solid proof. I needed to see his secret world with my own 2 eyes. I started my car engine, backed out of the parking space, and drove out of the skyscraper garage. Instead of heading back to our quiet suburban neighborhood, I drove 3 blocks away, parked my car in the shadow of a large brick warehouse, and waited. From this position, I had a clear, unobstructed view of the main exit of Tower 42's parking garage. If Hugo's car was still inside the building, he would eventually have to drive out. The summer storm finally broke. Heavy raindrops began to slam against my windshield, blurring the bright city, lights into messy streaks of yellow and red. I sat in the dim cabin of my car, shivering slightly as the air conditioning blew cold air onto my face. I felt like a stranger in my own life, tracking the man I shared a bed with. At exactly 2:10 p.m., a sleek, familiar midnight blue sedan emerged from the underground garage of Tower 42. It was Hugo's car. My heart did a violent flip in my chest. He had been inside the building after all, but he wasn't working. He was probably using the building's gym, or perhaps meeting someone in the private lower-level lounges where corporate clients were entertained. I waited until his car moved 2 blocks ahead into the heavy traffic, before I carefully pulled out to follow him. The pouring rain provided the perfect cover. The thick sheets of water made it nearly impossible for him to notice my standard gray SUV in his rearview mirror. Hugo didn't drive toward the financial district, nor did he head toward the luxury shopping malls downtown. Instead, his sedan turned highway-bound, driving 30 miles away from the city center and toward the old industrial shipping ports near the river. The landscape changed drastically. The beautiful glass skyscrapers disappeared, replaced by massive concrete warehouses, rusting shipping containers, and overgrown weeds climbing up chain-link fences. The area felt completely abandoned, a ghost town of old manufacturing industries. What could a senior financial director possibly be doing out here? I wondered, my anxiety morphing into a deep, heavy dread. Finally, Hugo's car slowed down and turned into the gravel driveway of a small, two-story brick building tucked between two enormous steel warehouses. A faded, rusted sign above the entrance read, "Riverbank Maritime Storage." I parked my SUV behind a row of large, broken delivery trucks about 100 yards away. Through the blurry, rain-soaked window, I watched Hugo step out of his midnight blue sedan. He wasn't wearing his elegant suit jacket anymore. He had left it in the car. He walked quickly through the pouring rain, holding a small black electronic keycard in his hand. He pressed the card against a digital scanner by the door. A small green light flashed, and he disappeared inside the mysterious brick building. I waited 5 long minutes inside my car, my breathing shallow and fast. The rain showed no signs of stopping. I pulled the hood of my waterproof jacket over my head, grabbed my phone, and stepped out into the stormy afternoon. The gravel crunched loudly beneath my sneakers as I approached the building. I walked along the side wall, avoiding the front entrance where security cameras might be active. I found a small, narrow window near the back of the building that was covered in decades of thick black dust, but the latch was old and rusted. I pushed against the frame with all my weight until it opened with a sharp, metallic screech. I climbed through the narrow opening, landing heavily on a cold concrete floor inside a dark, cavernous hallway. The air inside smelled strongly of old grease, damp paper, and metallic rust. It was completely different from the pristine, lavender-scented air of Tower 42. I moved soundlessly along the dark corridor, following the dim yellow light bulbs hanging from the ceiling. From a room at the very end of the hall, I heard the distinctive, low murmur of a man's voice. It was Hugo. I crept closer, pressing my back flat against the cold brick wall right outside the open doorway. I peered inside through a small crack in the hinges. The room was set up like a makeshift, high-tech office. There were 3 large computer screens displaying complex global shipping maps, flashing digital timetables, and international bank transfer screens. Scattered across a long metal table were dozens of passports with different photos, stacks of foreign currency, and heavy shipping manifests. Hugo was standing in front of the computer screens, speaking into a secure wireless headset. His voice lacked his usual warm, gentle tone. It was cold, commanding, and completely ruthless. "The container from Hamburg has cleared the primary customs checkpoint," Hugo said into the microphone, his eyes tracking a flashing red icon on the global map. "The maritime documents are completely falsified. The border authorities think it's a shipment of medical equipment. The secondary funds have already been routed through our offshore accounts in Panama. Ensure the delivery arrives at the warehouse by midnight." My breath caught sharply in my throat, and I had to clamp my hand firmly over my mouth to prevent myself from screaming out loud. My husband wasn't having a petty affair. He wasn't a lazy corporate executive taking an unannounced vacation. He was using his expert financial knowledge to run a massive, highly illegal international smuggling operation. The overtime hours he claimed to spend at Apex Wealth Management were actually spent inside this dark warehouse, managing illegal container ships and laundering millions of dollars through offshore shell companies. As I watched through the door crack, Hugo picked up a thick white document from the table and scanned it into his computer. The heading on the paper was clearly visible under the bright desk lamp: offshore liquidation and personal asset transfer. He began speaking into the headset again. "Listen to me carefully. This is the final run. My wife, Diana, still believes I am working standard corporate overtime at the firm. I have already initiated the secret transfer of our marital house and our joint investment accounts into my private account in the Cayman Islands. By Friday night, the liquidation will be 100% complete. I will disappear from the grid, and she will be left with absolutely nothing but an empty house and a mountain of corporate debt." The sheer, freezing cruelty of his words pierced my heart like an icy spear. He wasn't just committing a crime against the state. He was actively, deliberately planning to destroy my entire life, steal my home, and abandon me without a single penny. The loving husband who kissed my forehead every night was a cold-hearted predator who had been plotting my financial ruin for months. A deep, fiery rage sparked inside my chest, burning away the last remnants of my fear. I pulled out my smartphone, raised the camera lens to the door crack, and pressed the record button. I captured his face, the illegal shipping maps on the screens, the falsified passports on the desk, and the clear audio of his voice explaining his plan to liquidate our marriage. I recorded for 5 full minutes until I had undeniable, ironclad evidence that would hold up in any federal court of law. Then, I carefully slid the phone back into my pocket, turned around, and retraced my steps down the dark hallway. I climbed back out through the rusted window and ran through the pouring rain to my SUV. I sat in the driver's seat, my body completely soaked, but my mind was sharper and clearer than it had ever been. I looked at the video file on my phone. Hugo thought he was a corporate ghost, a master strategist who could vanish into the shadows and leave his naive wife behind to face the wreckage. But he had vastly underestimated me. I didn't drive home. Instead, I turned the car toward the downtown Federal District, heading directly toward the main office of the Financial Crimes Investigation Bureau. I checked my watch. 3:30 p.m. Hugo's deadline for his fake European bank merger was Friday. That gave me exactly 48 hours to work with the authorities, freeze our joint accounts before his secret transfer could finalize, and build a beautiful, inescapable trap for my perfect corporate husband. As I drove through the fading summer storm, a calm, resolute smile finally appeared on my face. Hugo had spent years analyzing financial data and predicting market trends, but he had failed to calculate the most dangerous variable of all: a betrayed wife who had absolutely nothing left to lose. The office inside the Financial Crimes Investigation Bureau was small, quiet, and brightly lit by white fluorescent lamps. There were no abstract paintings or luxury carpets here, just stacks of heavy cardboard files, gray metal desks, and a serious-looking investigator named Agent Vance, ironically sharing a common name, though no relation to Hugo. I sat across from him, my wet hair drying in the cold air conditioning as he watched the 5-minute video file on his laptop screen. "This is incredible evidence, Mrs. Vance," the agent said, lowering his spectacles and looking at me with a mixture of respect and deep concern. "Your husband isn't just doing small-scale money laundering. We have been tracking this Riverbank Maritime shell company for over 18 months. They are smuggling unregistered luxury vehicles and illegal electronics across the Atlantic. We just never had the digital key to link the offshore bank accounts directly to a physical coordinator." "Can you stop him?" I asked, my voice completely cold and firm. "He is planning to empty our joint bank accounts and steal the title to our marital home by Friday afternoon." Agent Vance tapped his fingers on his desk, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the data. "We can do better than just stopping him. If we freeze the accounts right now, his criminal associates in Hamburg will realize the money didn't clear. They will suspect he is stealing from them, and he will immediately run away. But if we let the transfer appear to go through while we secretly redirect the funds into a secure government holding account, we can catch him red-handed at his desk while he thinks he is celebrating his escape." "What do you need me to do?" I asked, leaning forward. "Go home tonight," Agent Vance instructed gently. "Act completely normal, serve him dinner. Let him believe his smooth lies for another 24 hours. Tomorrow at 3:00 p.m., when he attempts to finalize the offshore liquidation, our tactical team will move into the Riverbank warehouse. We just need you to confirm his physical location tomorrow morning." I nodded slowly, a dangerous sense of calm washing over my body. "I can do that." When I returned home at 7:00 p.m., the house was warm and peaceful. I changed into a comfortable sweater, washed the mud off my sneakers, and began preparing a rich, homemade beef stew. The savory aroma filled the kitchen, creating a perfect image of cozy domestic bliss. At 11:30 p.m., the garage door rolled open. Hugo stepped into the kitchen, his dark silk tie loosened, his face wearing that familiar, carefully practiced mask of exhaustion. "Wow, something smells incredible," he murmured, walking over to wrap his arms around my waist from behind. He leaned down to kiss my neck, his lips feeling like ice against my skin. "I am so tired, Diana. Another brutal day of spreadsheet analysis. The European bank directors are bleeding me dry." I forced my body to remain loose and relaxed in his embrace. I turned around in his arms, looking directly into his handsome, green eyes, the eyes of a man who was planning to abandon me in less than 2 days. "You poor thing," I said softly, reaching up to gently smooth his hair. "I made your favorite stew. Sit down, relax, and let me serve you. You work so hard for us." "Thank you, darling," he smiled, his expression completely relaxed and confident. "I don't know what I would do without your support. Just 24 more hours, and this entire project will be finalized. Our future is going to be incredibly bright, I promise." I turned my back to him to ladle the hot stew into a porcelain bowl, my smile disappearing into a cold, hard line. "Yes, Hugo," I thought to myself. "Our future is going to change completely, but only one of us will be looking at it through a window with steel bars." Friday morning arrived with a clear, blue sky, the summer storm completely gone. Hugo left the house at 6:30 a.m. exactly, wearing his best charcoal gray corporate suit. He looked like the definition of a successful modern businessman. At 1:00 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Agent Vance. Our digital monitors show the Cayman Islands asset transfer has just been initiated from a network inside the Riverbank warehouse. The target is currently inside the building. The tactical team is moving into position. Are you ready? I replied with a single word. Yes. I got into my SUV and drove downtown, but I didn't go to the warehouse. Agent Vance had explicitly ordered me to wait at the federal headquarters for safety reasons. However, I requested to sit inside the monitoring room where the live audio feeds from the field agents were being received. I sat in a dark room filled with high-tech communications equipment, headphones pressed against my ears. I could hear the heavy, steady breathing of the tactical officers as they surrounded the brick warehouse by the river. Alpha team in position at the front entrance. A sharp voice crackled over the radio feed. Bravo team securing the rear window frame. Sniper has visual on the target through the upper glass pane. Target is sitting at the metal desk, typing on 3 computer monitors. Move in on my mark, Agent Vance's voice commanded from the control deck. 3, 2, 1, go. The audio feed instantly erupted into a chaotic storm of sound. I heard the explosive, deafening crash of heavy steel doors being smashed open by battering rams. Federal agents, nobody move. Hands in the air. Hands in the air right now, shouted multiple voices in perfect synchronization. Through the microphone, I heard a loud, metallic clatter, the sound of Hugo's rolling executive chair flipping backward onto the concrete floor. What is the meaning of this? Hugo's voice shouted back, his usual cool composure completely shattering into high-pitched panic. I am a senior financial director at Apex Wealth Management. You are making a massive mistake. Call my lawyers immediately. Cut the theater, Mr. Vance. An officer barked loudly. Your Apex Wealth office has been empty for 2 weeks. We have your shipping manifests from Hamburg, your falsified passports, and the digital logs of your offshore bank transfers to Panama. You are under arrest for international smuggling, tax evasion, and grand fraud. There was a brief moment of absolute silence on the line, followed by the heavy, metallic click-clack of steel handcuffs snapping tightly around a pair of wrists. How? How did you find this place? Hugo whispered, his voice suddenly sounding hollow, weak, and completely defeated. Nobody knew about this location. Nobody. You can thank your wife for the portfolio delivery, Mr. Vance. The officer replied coldly. She made sure your files reached the exact right destination. I pulled the headphones off my ears, leaning back in my chair as a massive wave of pure, absolute relief washed over my body. The corporate ghost had finally been anchored to reality. 3 months later, the autumn leaves were falling softly outside the large windows of my house. The legal battle had been intense and exhausting, but because of the undeniable evidence I provided, the federal courts had completely frozen our joint assets before Hugo could touch a single dollar. The house was officially mine, completely cleared of any corporate liability. Hugo had pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges and was currently serving a 15-year sentence in a maximum security facility. I stood in the kitchen, pouring a fresh cup of hot coffee under the morning sun. My phone vibrated on the counter. It was a notification from my bank app, showing that my independent checking account was perfectly stable and secure. I walked out onto the wooden back deck, breathing in the crisp, clean autumn air. For 4 years, I thought I was living a beautiful dream with a corporate hero. The dream had turned into a terrifying nightmare, but I had found the strength to wake up, fight back, and reclaim my own life. I took a slow sip of my coffee, a genuine, powerful smile spreading across my face as I looked toward the beautiful horizon. The high-rise towers of downtown were visible in the far distance, glittering under the bright morning light. But I was no longer chasing ghosts in the shadows. I was finally standing on solid ground, looking forward to a bright, independent future that was completely, beautifully mine. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to Storyline English. See you next time. Glowing star.